Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and we're answering publicly posted questions from YouTube users. This question was posted by YouTube user Misty Blue about 3 weeks ago, and it was posted on our video from August 28th of 2022 entitled, "Is 25% of recovery a good deal when hiring an employment attorney?" And Misty Blue asks, for a federal employee, how do you substantiate willful intent for liquidated damages in an equal pay case? Okay, so that's a complex question because you're asking me, how do you prove it? Well, that is different in every single case, right? We can talk about a general notion, what you would need to show, and that might be useful. I'm not going to be able to tell you how to prove it because I don't know your situation. I don't know the evidence you're dealing with, right? I'm not going to be able to give you the building blocks of your situation. I'm not going to be able to. It's just not going to be possible. But that being said, we can give you a notion of what to think about, which you may already have. And if that's not useful to you, I apologize. But it's probably the best I can do on an Ask and Answer YouTube channel, radio station. I don't know. YouTube channel. It goes beyond what we can probably do here. So you probably already know based on the kind of question you're asking here, right? But I'm going to explain it to some of the folks. If you have an Equal Pay Act claim, and essentially the notion of that statute, of that kind of claim is this. One protected class is paid more than another. One group is paid more than another group, and that second group is a protected class, right? So the classic example is women being paid less than their male counterparts. Their male, similarly situated peers, okay? Now, that can happen a million and one different ways. It can, right? There's ways that can happen that are less concerning, less evil than others, right? If you had an older company and that company hired almost entirely men until the mid 80s, and all those men stayed, they have a really high retention rate, there's not a lot of turnover, and they have really good promotions and raises, and that's how they keep the people, right? So they still have so many boomers on the staff, maybe even older than boomers, right? And before the mid 80s, everyone they hired was men. So they retained all those employees, and all those employees are still working there, and they all, have tons of higher wages because they've just been there a long time. And then starting in the 80s, you start to hire women. This company does, this hypothetical company. And all of them stay as well because this company has a really high retention rate, right? This company treats people well, it pays well, people like to stay there, people spend their careers there. Very quickly, you're going to find that many of those women are in the same title, the same positions as many of those men who've been around for decades. And you're going to start looking at it, you're going to say, these two people are at the same level and they do the same job. But the guy earns a lot more. Problematic. We got to look at that. Potentially a claim there. The company is going to come back and say, well, no, he earns more because he's been here for like 2 decades longer than his similarly situated peer, the woman, right? Yeah, they do the same job, but he's just been here longer, so he earns a lot more. Okay, but if we do an analysis across your entire company, it does appear that men in general are paid more than women when they're similarly situated peers. And I would argue that that's a claim. The company and the defense counsel would, of course, argue that's not a claim. They're paid more because they were here longer. We can differentiate each and every one of those, and we will attempt to do so. And there's a tension there, right, in this case, the equal pay case. And so they have a really good argument. I would say the case is still valuable from the plaintiff's perspective because you look at the data and you say, listen, women are not being paid as much as the men, right? And I understand this is Misty Blue, nothing like what you're dealing with potentially, but I'm giving an example. And I would argue that is still potentially a claim. That case would still have potential value and would likely, settle for money. And I think everyone would look at that case and say, okay, well, maybe that company wasn't evil. Like they weren't willfully doing bad things, right? So there's damages, and those damages are going to be, the economic damages. You can have some discussion as to whether or not emotional damages are in play. But those would be the damages. What Misty Blue is engaged in is a bit more of an egregious situation where by showing a willful violation of the Equal Pay Act, there's going to be this opening of the punitive, the liquidated damages component, which is provided under the law. Now, let's set aside our first hypothetical. New hypothetical company. I'm imagining the agent Ari from the show Entourage, just this wild, crazy type A guy who runs around. Maybe he's really bitter from a divorce and he prefers to work with men because he's a man's man, right? And he makes comments about that, and you can be very clear from his hiring decisions that he prefers to hire men. And he's a decision maker when it comes to raises. So everybody beneath him, when it comes promotion or raise time, the men fare much, much better. And so you have a situation where he is specifically making the calls about raises for his staff, and the men are doing much, much better. And this is a bad guy. This is a guy who runs around talking about how women are no good, and his ex-wife was a big bitch, and you can't trust a woman, and blah, 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 blah. He's a bad guy. He's a real piece of shit, right? And the company knows this, and they know that he is a decision maker, come raises, and come promotion time. Well, I think there you can show willful negligence, right? You knew the guy had some pretty gross thoughts about women, and you knew that a number of women had their compensation set in part by him. So at that point, I think you can probably show from context clues that there's a lot of reasons why you would say, hey, this was an intelligent thing for this company to do. This was pretty willful. They know this guy would scream at the company party about women and gold diggers and like all these things, right? And they knew that his hire and fire rate was out of whack. Like he would hire men at a 3-to-1 ratio to women, and in terms of promoting men, he promoted men like twice as often as he would promote women, and the termination rate for women was really high, or just the resignation rate, because a lot of women would say, I'm not getting anywhere here. This guy's a monster. Why would I work for this animal? And not for nothing, my career is going to go nowhere because he's going to try to strangle it. So I'm leaving. So the company would be aware that, women tend to resign or get fired when working for this guy. And they know the comments. They know his drunken rants to the company party. They know his off-color email forwarding. Yeah, because people still do that. It's wild. And I would say at that point, you can probably present all the context and all the testimony about the things he said, which, yeah, you can get into hearsay argument. Maybe there's hearsay, maybe there's not. I would call it admission against interest, but it's a fight, right? So you're getting in you're seeking to get in his statements, his emails, his hire and promote rate, his termination rate, his resignation rate for women, and you're looking at similarly situated peers, and you present kind of an argument that the company should have known, should have been aware of this, and that they were being willfully blind to what this guy was doing when they left him in control of promotions and raises for these different groups, right? Men and women. And this is all just the hypothetical, right? I know that I'm not applying the facts to your situation because I don't know your situation, but I'm trying to give you an idea of how I would generally approach a case like this. Discovery is the process by which you're going to be able to build your ammunition stockpile for proving willful intent. And you're going to have to be looking for both the data side and the story side. Data is amazing. Data cases are amazing. Data cases often have lower risk. Stories have risk, but they also can push big, big rewards because stories excite human beings. Human beings do not engage with data in the same way they engage with stories. So you want both if you can, right? You want the data case and you want the story. And in a seamless effort, right? If you're really doing everything right to max out damages here, you overlay the data on the story. And you tell the story, and as you're telling the story, you say, and then he did X, Y, and Z, and you know he did because of this, data point 1. And then he did X, Y, and Z, and you know he did because of this, data point 2. And then this happened, and you know it happened because of data point 4 and 5, right? And so what you're doing is telling an exciting, emotionally arousing story that becomes unassailable because it's supported by a foundation, by a framework of data. And I don't know how useful this answer is going to be for you. If I've fallen short, I will try sincerely to do better. But this is generally how I approach that kind of situation, that making that kind of argument. I hope this is useful to you in some way. If it's not, let me know. I'm going to check the comments. If it was, like and subscribe. Helps me to help more people just like you.